Welcome back. Now, I love gardening. I find it to be a great stress relief and really therapeutic. While I tend to my vegetable garden, the world just fades away and I focus my attention on my immediate tasks. It reduces my negative thoughts and feelings of the day, all the stresses that have built up. And I find that the smells, the textures, the sights always bring my mood up. When I go to my garden and I pick fresh salad greens every day and I harvest beans and tomatoes and zucchini, or I use fresh herbs from the garden or pick fresh flowers from my garden, I feel like a proud papa.
I know you
and
do.
I send you
And you
pictures all the
send me
time.
pictures, I know.
But actually, studies have found psychological, physiological, and biological reasons that gardening can also stimulate serotonin production, regulating your mood, your anxiety, and your happiness. There's growing research on the positive effect of gardening on mental health. Gardening really does help reduce stress. It helps reduce anxiety and depression. And my next guest is a gardening expert. She's also a fellow dentist, Dr. Ali Galarian.
Oh, nice to see you, Dr. G.
I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
We're looking to speaking to you about your.
Gardening, teach us.
So,
Look, I mean, look what you did already.
Well, I
Look at
brought
this
the garden
So
to you.
I love your ability to bring the garden from outside to inside, and that's just what you've done here.
It's here. Like, this is an indoor space, but you feel like you're outside, right?
Right, yeah.
So these were harvested this morning from my garden, these flowers here.
Okay.
I like fresh, living things, texture, green. It makes a indoor space feel like you're blurring that line, right?
Yeah.
During COVID, everyone was cooped up.
Right.
All you wanted to do was get outside.
Right.
But you don't have a space. You need something to ground that space. So it's a simple rug, right? Like, I brought a rug. We've got some lavender that brings some scent,
I love that.
right?
It's so calming.
And the phlox here. This phlox
And that's
is
interesting. Yeah, it's a different type of flock than I'm used to.
so there's creeping phlox, which looks like this, but then feel this. This is Irish moss.
Oh wow.
Can you?
just touching
I
it
know.
is like
So-
babies love to touch. And
So
it's like
I
sort of
go
like,
barefoot in the garden, and I
Oh,
have
wow.
pavers, but I don't step on the pavers. I like to feel this through my feet.
oh, that's interesting.
So it is that sense of tactile touch, Dr. Jean,
Yeah.
like you were saying. It's calming. My favorite thing is I get home from work, I open the door, and I hear my water. I instantly, I'm
Zen.
calm. I'm zen.
Yeah.
Like you. I go pick my tomatoes in the morning. I
Yeah.
go pick my herbs in the morning. Smell this. Smell this.
Oh, that's
Wait, what is
that's
this?
great. What is that?
Oh my gosh, what is that?
This is Corsican mint. So this is a creeper. When you walk over this, yes. Can you
Oh my
imagine walking in
gosh.
the garden?
No, I didn't realize
Yes.
it could be such a interactive thing.
Right, and it's evergreen. So in the winter, it doesn't disappear. That's another thing about your gardening space. Make sure I travel a lot,
Yeah.
right? And I always bring back something from my travels.
How did you transition from dentist to gardenalia, which we'll talk about in a
Sure. Well, I've always been a gardener. My mom and dad would have a vegetable garden.
Yeah.
So growing fresh veg was normal. I mean, we would spend summers picking corn, shucking corn together as a family at the kitchen table, watching Bjorn Borg playing tennis for the 4 hours, and we'd shuck our corn and then freeze it in Ziploc bags. And they were all about fresh and organic before
Before it was cool.
Oh, for sure. I
Right.
mean, we made homemade yogurt back then.
Yeah,
I
you
still,
do too.
I still make my
I do.
yogurt.
I
I mean,
do
my
too.
mom has her culture
Yeah.
that she will bring.
keep on going
You just
on
keep
and on.
going. You never, that gassed when someone throws that culture away. You're like, oh no, what'd you do? That's right. That's right. So I was always a gardener, but getting into garden design. I had 2 acres, and they had missited our house. We built our house. I had 2 young boys, and they missited it by 30 feet. So instead of a flat yard, I had
Oh,
a cliff, and I terraced it. And every terrace was a different garden.
beautiful.
And it took years. It did. I started up by the house. In fact, my first garden was. It was their old, the wooden play sets, the tree house, the slide, and they were done with it, right? It was
Yeah.
bee infested, and so I
Right.
sat there one day, and it was I would overlook that from the kitchen window saying, and I thought, wouldn't it be fab if there was a waterfall at the end of that and there was a little bridge that you could walk over and then enter into a
So you
gate.
imagine this and you make
then I
it a
made
reality?
it. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
You
lovely.
know, so tell us a little about Gardenelia.
Sure. Well, about 5 years ago, I moved into a new home and it had a very small yard. And I started making spaces out of that small yard, different rooms. And my neighbors started looking at it and saying, you know what, you really need to do this for other people. And during COVID, I thought, yeah, I really do. And it feels so wonderful. I have clients who say, you're like the little garden fairy godmother. Because it is really, it can be remarkable what you can do for not much, or you can have the gamut. It really depends on each individual client. And it's so wonderful making people smile with spaces in their own yard. Yeah.
Do you do it? Do you go to people's homes?
I do. I will go to people's homes. We'll do like a little sit down and discussion about what you like and what you don't like. I really like to talk about 4 seasons of interest, because when you're sitting inside in the bleak, cold, horrible winter, you have this structural element to look at. And when the snow falls upon that, it's heaven.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, you're
today.
welcome.
It's
You're
great. This
welcome.